After a long wait, it's finally here. Overwatch 2's PvE content, which I am so glad to say there's still a bunch of stuff to grab onto with these missions. Which I won't dive into the story missions today, I want to talk about other stuff, like the units and how the heroes have been changed. Also maybe looking into how PvE could change for the future, because this is a very solid base to build off. So without further ado, let's get into the first bit, which we're going to focus on the units, starting with the most common guy, the Null Trooper. Which at a glance, this unit's moveset's kinda basic. He has his normal burst where he just shoots a few shots, and the melee attack. But the second you start damaging the Null Trooper, that's when it gets interesting. So, across all the Null Sector units, they have this damage system. And Null Trooper is the perfect example of this. Let's say I shoot off his legs. This forces into this crawl state. So now it's still trying to shoot at me, but it's just crawling around. While in this state, I can make it lose its gun, which forces into a last resort mode. So now its one goal is to crawl up to you and explode to try and kill you. Even then, if it's still just standing up but you shoot off its arms, because there's nothing to attack you with, it will also try to walk up to you and explode. Even when you shoot the head off, they're still trying to kill you. So to say the least, these Null Troopers are really trying to kill Overwatch. Which is such a visceral feeling to be fighting this army that no matter how much you damage them, they're still trying to get you down. And the same goes for the elite version of the Null Trooper, which is very similar to the normal one, except with this black paint job and a new way of shooting at you, which it showers you in the same amount of bullets, so you better keep your distance. Now we can get to the Scrimmer, Null Sector's first flying unit we meet. But something I love from this unit is how we see it enter the fight, which sometimes these beautiful rotations in the air before it lands. But anyway, the Skirmisher can use its rocket launcher to shoot at you. It even has a rocket barrage style attack to kill you, which that kills you so fast, just try to avoid it. What you can damage with the Skirmisher is a bit more simple. You can shoot off its wings, which when that happens, it just basically becomes a grunt with a rocket launcher. But if I shoot off its gun, its main way of attacking you is trying to fly into you. And when you kill it in the midair, there's a chance it's gonna crash down and hit another Null Sector buff. And before we move to the next guy, I need to mention the fact that this also has an elite unit that we only seen in Underworld so far, which that has a new attack, which is basically like Hammond Mines. And compared to the Null Trooper elite, that's a really cool new attack to give it. The artillery is likely the first big unit you will meet, which normally there are two things to worry about with this unit, which is normal attack where it shoots a rocket at a pretty low pace, and what I call its bombardment mode, where it locks into the ground and starts bombarding you with rockets from range. So this is not a unit to be left unattended, which the easy way to deal with that is to shoot off its guns. Which shooting these is great. You can see the more these are getting damaged that they're falling apart, until they of course at the end fall off. And even after it loses its guns, it's not a sitting duck. It will try to use its rocket boosters to land on you and crush you. And of course I can't forget, I love the way this unit dies. Just the way they fall over and then explode. And fun fact, when a unit dies with one gun, it has a chance to fall to the side that is the heaviest. And last up from the Rio enemies, we got the Charger. But let's not focus on the elite version from the story mission. Let's focus on the regular white version, which is weirdly missing from any of the story missions so far. So good we had Underworld to see what the normal Charger can do. It has this cool minigun style attack, a charge attack, which if you get killed by this axe uses Doomfist's rocket punch icon. And this cool charge up attack that turns into like an earth shatter around it. And the charge can be damaged a lot. Specifically it can lose basically all its body parts and still be working. Which then will just be this mess right here that is just trying to kill you even though it's almost dying itself. Which in this state it has this cool leap style attack. And when the charger dies, you see it fall back and then explode. Such a cool dopamine hit for killing a boss unit like this. And to focus on the Charger a bit more, I love how much it looks like a rhino. Anyway, that elite version I talked about earlier. So far there's only used as the boss fight for the Rio mission, and it's also the only real boss fight we've had so far in the PvE. And with how its gimmick was to run into the cold damage the shields of it to damage it, I wonder if we will actually see it be used at some point in more normal missions, outside of the context of being a boss again. But it does make me hope, if this unit's elite is so big, it could be great to see some other units be upgraded to bosses for some missions. Slicers are some fun little guys. This is the first time we see one of those objective units, which what make these special is that they actually don't attack the player, they attack the objective. So you have this new dynamic of a thing that ignores you and just tries to run past you. Which these guys are pretty good at this, and all they do is just laser what objective there is. But something cool my friends have noticed is they can actually knock into each other and create a chain explosion effect, which can be very useful if you're having trouble killing all of these guys. And now we get to one of the next really fun special units, the Stalker, which she creates some great new gameplay. So with this unit, you gotta watch out it doesn't grab one of your teammates, And if it grabs someone, you gotta hurry up to stop it in some way, or else it is going to kill the teammate it just grabbed. Thankfully there are ways to stop it. You have some knockback ability or some stun ability. Then later in Toronto, we meet the second objective unit, the Subjugator. This big purple orb of a guy has a simple goal: put the helmets on the Omnics. Which during Toronto, you have to stop that from happening to Claire already. But that's really all there is to them. They're kinda simple in the action they want to do. But I do love the little eye they have poking out from the front of them. Now going to Gothenburg, we then meet our next special unit, the Vulture. This unit throws down these EMP zones to stop you from using your abilities, instantly destroy a shield, or disable any turret. And beyond that, it also got this really cool laser beam attack, where it just tries to damage you at range. And now for the last Null Sector unit we meet, the Breacher, which is a simple unit. It has one goal: go to an objective and explode. And I love the way they talked about this unit in preview gameplay, where they spoke of it being built to do one thing, and when it's at the objective, it will then open up like a flower, which makes you know that, oh god, I only have so much time to destroy it. Something very neat is that on higher difficulties, the Breacher actually explodes faster. And sometimes when you kill it, it can actually drop the bomb it's holding, which can also damage the objective. But of course the hope is that it actually damages the different Null Sector bot. And that's just a quick overlook of the units we have so far, because we seem to be getting talent, at least in the next batch of story missions. So I know I'm not done talking about the enemies of this game mode yet. Now also about other improvements I would like to see about this mode. Which, just starting out, please just give us an all heroes mode. Because I think a lot of us are going to be playing these missions a lot, and giving us this option to play whoever you want to, even if it's only with friends, could add some really fun replayability for most people. Also, something really good could be modifiers for the story missions. And a great example are the ones from Archives. Stuff like Glass Cannon, Close Quarter, and Thunder Storms. And taking a look at something more recent like Underworld, like Death from Above, Ultimate Zones, and Mystery Spot. Especially that last one, because I really love being forced to play different heroes. But even beyond this for missions, I would love if a mission like Rio could have more enemy variety, because there's so many special units they could be using for this mission, but even on the harder difficulties they just don't show up. And as also mentioned earlier, the White Charger doesn't show up at all in any of these missions. So when Underworld leaves, you just straight up can't fight the White Charger, which I think is a real shame. Well, let's talk about the hero PvE balance. A few heroes going into PvE actually got some changes. My favorite example of this are Winston and Lucio. Winston got two new great mechanics. His right click now jumps to different enemies when he hits someone, and the more airtime you have with Leap, the more damage it does, which helps his gameplay feel visceral and fun. And a similar amount of changes came to Lucio, which his speed song now gives teammates a 20% faster fire rate, and knocking enemies into walls with his poop actually does damage to them. But seeing these two get so big changes makes me question, why are some of these changes for other Overwatch heroes? And to me, Reinhardt's the perfect example here, which he didn't really get anything. Which is really weird to me looking back at it, because we've seen some really great PvE changes for Reinhardt. Prime example is just multi-charge, which showed up in Battle for Olympus. He's only gonna do like 225 damage to them, which Winston with a full leap is gonna do basically the same, but to more enemies. And two heroes I also see struggling a lot is Cassidy and Ashe. So shooting off the head of these Null Sector units is great. The issue just becomes, when you're shooting them and this happens, you just can't land headshots anymore, which isn't really the greatest feeling for these heroes, but I still think we should keep this mechanic. We should make it so these heroes do more critical damage to the head when it's there, just to make up for the loss of damage they have later. Even then I have a fun idea for a passive for Cassidy. So sometimes when you kill Null Sector units they hurt each other. So it could be really fun if Cassidy has a passive with the name of something like Dumb Luck, so when he kills a unit, it's more likely to damage another unit. But these are just some fun little base balance changes I would like to see to the heroes here. Something I hope they experiment with is the return of some of the old talents. But instead of going the big skill tree route, which is just too big for its own good, let's think about reverting back to something similar to the 2019 version of talents. Which a fun way to set that up could be, so we have 4 minor talents, but at the end we have 2 bigger talents. If I use the example of Reinhardt here, I found 2 talents to choose between could be between like Fire Strike that sets enemies on fire, or having Ice Strike that freezes an enemy. Then we could have something cool like Tighter Charge Turn, or a charge that deals slightly more damage. Then ending into 2 big talents, which could be the return of something like Epicenter and a Shield Bash for Reinhardt, which you could imagine something cool they could do with this in the future for hopefully most of the heroes, if they ever want to go back to an idea like this. But that should be mostly everything I have to say for now. Pve's launch has been super cool. It's great seeing the game go so far in terms of story and gameplay, because fighting Null Sector is just plain fun, and seeing more lore for this world while actually playing that lore is amazing. So I really hope they have some really cool new PvE content coming in the near future, be it more minor updates or big story missions. Also, just to tag it on at the end, can we please have access to the replay system just for my sake? Because I would really love to just explore these PvE maps, because they're just so good. And of course take some cool screenshots. But actually also, it would be cool to have access to the heroes' PvE balance in custom games, to create some more chaotic modes. And please, if you're interested, tell me what you thought was really cool about this gameplay. But that's it for me. Have a good one, everyone.